Are you a minimalist who had kids and then struggled with that transition? Or are you a parent yourself and you're interested in getting into minimalism? The fact is that the internet is full of information about minimalism, but it's mostly made by men, young men who don't have kids. And life with kids and families is very different than being single or not having kids. And one of the biggest differences between being single and having kids is the amount of stuff. There's just like a lot of stuff. And I would actually argue that if we want to advance the minimalism movement, you should get more parents into it, because parents and boomers have the most amount of stuff. There's just a lot of stuff. So if we want to evolve the cause, a young man doesn't have much stuff anyway, so this is mission critical. I myself got into minimalism in my early 20s. I was traveling around the world for a long time, like a half a decade, just having a backpack and with my stuff. I even tried the 100-item challenge for a while, and it was very helpful. It helped me save money. It gave me peace of mind. It gave me focus. But as I became a parent, it became pretty obvious that, hey, some things needs to change. So in this video, I'm going to share 7 ways I'm learn how to do more with less as a parent. The first way to be a minimalist parent and do more with less is actually around philosophy and your paradigm. And this is especially true if you were a minimalist before having kids. So when I was a minimalist and I had a mindset of having few items, when you become a parent, you have to have a new normal, a new baseline. First of all, like we have 2 kids and a third on the way. So now it's 5 people's stuff. So 5 times the stuff I had when I was single. Secondly, as with kids, I think there's some baseline stuff that you need to have so you can't compare yourself to the past. So you have to kind of start fresh. You can compare yourself to yourself and have measured progress of minimalism and decluttering. And you can also compare yourself to other parents and how much stuff they have. But like, do not compare yourself when you were single or time before kids. This is like time before Christ and after Christ. It's like a new normal. Like you don't think about your life before kids. I think perfection and being OCD about it will actually make minimalism close to impossible. The other way that minimalism without kids versus minimalism with kids is slightly different is that there's a higher rotation of items. You can still aim to keep a same baseline of items, what it might be. It might be more than if you were single, but instead of 100 items, maybe it's 200 items per person or something like that, depending on your case. But the rotation of those 200 items is a lot faster. When I was a minimalist without kids, I would have the same jacket for like 7 years. But with kids, like the sweater will last like 6 months, depending on the age, and then they need a new sweater. So you have to be constantly curating and rotating items. Same with toys. Certain toys are age appropriate, and then 6 months later, they're no longer age appropriate. Either the kids doesn't want it, or for their development, they need different kinds of toys. So you have to be constantly changing. But what you can do is declutter constantly. So what a lot of parents do is they get these items, be clothing or whatnot, and then they just put it in the closet and now they have more stuff. So it takes a little bit more work to be a minimalist parent, and there's a higher rotation, but you can keep the baseline item amount roughly the same. Because of this higher rotation of items, Goodwill and flea markets have become our best friends. So secondhand shops and Goodwill. There's a lot of items we need, like kind of truly do need, but I feel bad about buying a new one because of both money reasons and we know that it's gonna only last for a short while. So you go to Goodwill and you get it there for like $5. And then when we're done, we give it back to them or somewhere else and just keep rotating. Both my parents and my wife's parents saved a lot of our items. So we have a lot of our kids got items from like the 80s, Europe, and our kids are now wearing them. I don't know if we're ready to hoard an item for 30 years or so like they did. But, we're grateful that we got to use items that we also had as kids ourselves. On top of that, you can obviously also gift it to your friends and you get hand-me-downs from your friends. That's awesome. So, and there's Facebook Marketplace. That's another place where especially like more expensive toys and tools, you can kind of rotate. But this rotation of Goodwill or flea market, secondhand shop, hand-me-downs is amazing and important. It's actually a fun kind of a social activity, and you quickly learn that it takes a village to raise kids. So at some point, none of your items is your items and they're everyone else's items. Which is actually one of the beautiful lessons of being a minimalist with kids, is you actually kind of start to think that you own nothing and you have access to everything, because it's just like the community sharing everything together. And this is actually a slight mindset difference between a minimalist without kids or minimalist with kids. As a minimalist without kids, you kind of want to buy the best or really high quality items that last a long time, and therefore you don't need to buy much. But with kids, because you grow out faster, I'm not saying buy fast fashion and poor quality items, but they kind of only last for like, let's say 6 months at a time. And then you give it to someone else. Obviously, if it's a high quality item, it's easier to give forward. So again, don't buy the cheapest, but like it only lasts for a while. That's why like secondhand is so awesome, extra awesome for kids. Now, one of the ways that I found very helpful as a minimalist before kids, but even more helpful with kids, is the box method. Box method is having an empty box by the door, or sometimes I put it in my closet. And every time I find an item that I kind of so like, I would put it in the box. And then when the box is full, I would take it away. And I try to get rid of like a box a month as when I was single. Now with kids, it's probably even more helpful. So having a few of these boxes where you keep taking stuff out is very, very helpful. If you don't do this, it's easy to have a closet full of stuff very quickly and suddenly it gets crowded. But if you're constantly having an empty box, it reminds you to think what is actually helpful and what's not helpful. Another method that minimalists use without kids that can be also helpful with kids is putting it away rule. And there's a few versions of this out there, but basically the idea is that you take an item, let's say you take all your clothes, and you put it away and see which one of them you use within 6 months. How we do this with kids is particularly with toys. Like kids love toys and they're very helpful for development purposes, or many toys are. But then they get bored of them, and it's actually helpful for the kid to just have a handful of toys. But then the variety will long-term make them better. So what we do is we put toys away for like few months and then we bring it back. And sometimes the kid will feel like, oh, I got a new toy, even though it was the same toy he had 3 months ago. And sometimes they're like, I don't like playing with that toy anymore, which is a good indicator that we can take it to Goodwill or gift it to someone else. Next tip is to have a messy room. A lot of minimalist people are very OCD, like very OCD. And one of the biggest lessons I've had as a parent is actually to letting go. And kids create a mess as they're learning like fine motor skills, that they just don't have the precision. So they spill and mess stuff as they're trying to do it right. And if you keep fixing it or interrupting it, they're not developing those skills as fast. So kids need to make a mess, in my opinion, and they need to have freedom and they're not restricted. At the same time, if you want to be minimalist, especially if you're minimalist for like aesthetic stress purposes, like some people are, for that reason, it's good to have like an own room where they can make a mess and do whatever they want. And then the other rooms, they're clean. While on the topic of traveling with kids, travel, especially long-term travel, like long-term, this case is like a month, 2 months, is actually a great way to also do minimalist with kids. When you travel with kids for a month or two, you kind of quickly realize you don't need that much. Like you still need more than without kids, but not as much as you might think. So when doing it, you realize that, hey, I don't need all this other stuff that I left in my house. You also might realize that what's something specific that you didn't bring was extra helpful. So that will remind you how valuable that item is and how to keep that. But by doing this like 1-2 month travel with kids, it's a great way to curate also what you need and what you don't need. Our family tends to go to Europe every summer to meet my grandparents and spend time at our farm. And we just travel with one suitcase and a family of 4, soon 5, and then carry-ons. And that's all we need. And going there, we often find that we brought too many of X anyway. And it's very easy with kids, especially because their clothes fit into a small space. You don't need that much space. But when we go, we always remind ourselves, it's like, it would be nice to have A, B, and C, which we left back home. And those are the items you want to keep. And all the other items you didn't miss or need is a good question. Why do you even have them? So those are the 7 ways how I've been able to do more with less and incorporate the minimalist mindset into parenting so far. As a bonus tip is something that we're currently experimenting with, but it's too early to say, and that's the Montessori method. The Montessori method has a lot of benefits for decluttering, particularly getting the kids to like participate in daily activities like cleaning the house, cooking food. Now, the negative is that you need to buy these Montessori toys and Montessori equipment that hopefully help the kid to develop faster and better, but our oldest is now in a Montessori pod, soon hopefully going to a Montessori school. So it's a little too early for me to tell that is all the gear and stuff worth it, or is it actually helping the cause? But so far we've been impressed by the mindset of like incorporating children, particularly into daily activities, very European of us, but like you don't need separate kid activities. You just bring the kid to the activities you're going to do anyway. But we'll see how that goes. I can report back to you later. Hopefully that was helpful, even if you're a minimalist now having kids, or if you're a parent looking to be more like a minimalist, but the advice you have received has not been helpful. Trust me, like there will be more stuff with kids doing minimalism, but it's still worth it. It's better than the opposite, which is like having stuff literally everywhere and Lego boxes in every corner. Also, like your kids don't need to wear all black. Like the minimalist young men tell you is like, you can have color in life for sure. And you can still have just a handful of items. You don't have to be extreme either way. You can kind of meet in the middle. And as long as you're like with the box method, constantly kind of curating and trying your best, I'm sure you'll have a better way of life. Do you have another tip? Leave a comment below. And if you enjoyed the content, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next video. Ciao, ciao.